the 14th of January, 2024. And once again, I'm keeping my streak of getting the year right going. 14 days in a row, I haven't messed up. Knock on synthetic wood. So, um, I'm here. I'm here with my noisy cat and waiting for a topic to appear that we'll talk about today. Lately, it has been a lot of talk about well-being. I don't know if it's the beginning of the year, um, when everyone sets their New Year's resolution, and it's generally the same. They want to do some form of self-improvement. Normally, it's body sense related, although occasionally it's emotionally related, which is good. Um, what I always try to point out is the importance of not separating the two. That if you're trying to get in shape but you haven't addressed your bad habits, let's call them bad habits. Um, if you haven't addressed your diet, if you don't have your diet in order, if you don't have your emotional life in order, if you haven't been working on some of those um, sleep hygiene issues, then you're not truly going to get in shape. You're not going to make any lasting changes. It seems to me that overall self-improvement doesn't work because, well, for one, it's hard. And we never go to the root cause. I remember, maybe, I guess it was several decades ago now, Wayne Dyer wrote a book called There's a Spiritual Solution to Everything. And it does seem that way to me. But again, it would be a mistake to just think of things in terms of spiritual and not address the physical as well. Or we could broaden our approach to spirituality and make it a little more all-inclusive, knowing that our diet is a spiritual issue, knowing that our thinking, the thinking process itself, is a spiritual issue, and including our fitness, including our exercise routine. So we get everything in order. This is why, almost to the point of being evangelical about it, I urge people to get outside early in the morning. For the health benefits, for the sunlight hitting the eyes, which I've explained to the point no one needs to hear it from me again, although I'm sure I will keep explaining it. But also for the healing factor of nature, for absorbing as well, and being absorbed by the fractal energy of infinite design. We could even call it the holiness of nature. I know that is a word that some people, when the spiritual sort of heads towards the esoteric or the religious, it might lose some people. So be it though. Sometimes that language is the most fitting for what we have to describe what occurs under those circumstances, especially being out in nature, and especially at those hours when everything is so quiet, so still. It is by far my favorite time of the day. We had our friend Simone yesterday and read some Rumi about not going back to sleep. The importance, the hour of Brahma. Let's bring that up. I believe it is like an hour and a half before the sun comes up, and I believe it lasts for at least an hour after the sun comes up. The good thing of having the talk here at my desktop is I have Google on cue. And I very much enjoy talking about this stuff and getting it right. Brahma Muhurta is what it's called, and it is the hour of the hour of Brahma, the holiest time, the most auspicious time of the day. This is what Rumi said about the door between two worlds, although not to second guess Rumi, but I would say infinite worlds. And I think quantum physics sort of proves that out substantially so, although maybe not conclusively so. And that's why I think, maybe we're wrong when we think in terms of, are we being visited by beings from outer space? I think more truly what we have going on, if we have anything going on, is interdimensional travel. We don't have to worry about anything from outer space or be concerned about anything from outer space. It seems to me that the physics of that puts it pretty far out of reach. And hopefully, and this is just pure speculation for what it's worth, that if we were ever contacted, it would be for our benefit. I know some people worry that it would be to our detriment, that a being that advanced would look at us as if we were insects or animals, much the way we look at insects and animals, or the majority of us do. But I'd like to think that being advanced enough to travel through that amount of space to reach us would also be evolved to the point of having nothing but empathy and compassion towards everything. But obviously, again, that is just speculation on my part. So Rumi says that this is when we can travel between the two worlds. Again, I'm thinking in terms of infinite worlds. The important thing is the Brahma Muhurta is the hour of Brahma, the hour of God. Jane Roberts, who was the receiver of information from Seth, channeled information. Seth was a non-physical entity, is what he called himself, or they called themselves, and spoke to Jane Roberts. Whether you believe in that or not, doesn't matter. The book themselves contains some pretty deep and important wisdom, one of which, and I read this in the 1980s, and it has stuck with me since, that we all receive a wake-up call from God between the hours of 3 and 6 a.m., but most of us choose to ignore it or hit the God snooze button. We'll get back to you, God. Can you speak to me at a more reasonable time? Probably even more so now because of the distraction of social media and the readiness of our cell phones. Things like that prove to be more of a distraction, so we're less attuned to the natural connection, what in Celtic lore they call the thin places. Places between worlds that are so thin, they've been worn thin, sometimes so thin that we can actually slip through or something else can slip through. And that's what Rumi was talking about. So let's see, Brahma Muhurta is 48 hours that begins, 48-minute period, that begins 1 hour and 36 minutes before sunrise and ends 48 minutes, let's see. What they're saying here does not make much sense. This is Wikipedia in a 48-minute period. But then they're saying 1 hour 36 minutes before sunrise, and it says it ends 48 minutes before sunrise. So Wikipedia seems to have missed the ball. I've heard, and here it says 3:30 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. And that is about the time I'm about in the middle of my meditation practice, 3:30. And then I am up and I'm doing my first yoga routine, and then I'm sitting to write. And by that time, it's just a little bit after 4 a.m. And I absolutely love writing at time. The house is so quiet, outside is so quiet, and if there's going to be a voice of God, and it's going to come to me in the silence of inspiration, it's going to be whispered inspiration. It's going to be whispered in the wind. It's going to be whispered in the branches flowing against my house, flowing against the window in that early dawn, pre-dawn wind blow. It's going to be in the silence itself, as Herman Melville said, that silence is the only true voice of God. So that is when I enjoy writing the most. Always enjoy writing, most particularly when I'm inspired with a theme, but you don't need a theme. Show up, sit at your desk, and words will come. Or sit in front of the canvas, and inspiration will come. But even if you just did a brush stroke. This brings me back to the original point, which I am so far away from. The making those changes, the so-called self-improvement, that this is where we need to start. We need to start somewhere around this hour, somewhere in the Brahma Muhurta, the hour of God. And then allow yourself to be changed. There's no sense, I talked about this morning right after my burpee session. I'm not saying there's never time to grit your teeth and exert some will, push your shoulder against the wheel, but I do think that time is limited. For the most part, it is better to let the work be done through you, to embrace the fact, as I would say in the Tao Te Ching or the Bhagavad Gita, that there is no doer, but things are getting done through you. A lot of people call this the way of least effort. I believe Deepak Chopra, in fact, I know Deepak Chopra, in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, calls it the law of least effort. And that doesn't mean that effort isn't applied. It just means that we know where that effort is coming from and that we are detached from the outcome of the effort itself. That's the important aspect. So if it's least effort and if we're detached from the outcome, where does willpower itself come in? And that's why I say mostly, in terms of self-improvement, it doesn't come in, because you'll get exhausted and you'll give up and nothing will have been changed. I guess the psychological lore is that if you do something for 21 days in a row, it'll become a habit. One, I think it's going to be difficult for those who are trying to develop a habit to do something for 21 days. And two, I'm just not so sure that is the case. And I think it might have been debunked. I know people tell me the 10,000 hours that Malcolm Gladstone has put out has been debunked. But I don't think he was being precise with that 10,000 hours. I think it was more in terms of a metaphor that means practice, 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 for the sake of practice, and not so much for the sake of mastery. That's detachment. Not playing the piano to be Mozart. You're playing the piano to play the piano, and you get better and better and better. That's how Mozart became Mozart. Of course, he was born with that immense talent, which some might use as proof of some sort of reincarnation. Coming into the world, knowing exactly, this is what I do. I play the piano. Maybe better than anyone else in the world, ever. Depending on if you like Mozart or not. Which I do. Although, yeah, I do like Mozart. I was trying to think if I like someone better, and I probably do. Brahms, Bach. Um, some might really say that Bach was the playing the music of the spheres. Anyway, we all have our um, we all have our favorites. That's mine in classical music, and of course I have mine in jazz as well. Um, with probably the great John Coltrane being top, at least top three. I might put Miles Davis up there. Amar Jamal, if you guys are familiar with him or not familiar, definitely look him up. Live at the Pershing. You will absolutely love his stuff if you like jazz. Um, so, should we give up if you can't make these changes, if there's no self-improvement, or if self-improvement is too hard? I think a better way, and I started talking about this, and once again I got off topic, during my burpee conversation, Sankalpa, which is Sanskrit word, meaning roughly, some Sanskrit words don't really have a translation, but a loose description of the word would be intent, powerful intent, a strong desire that is entered into the silence of the world and allowed to act on its own. And we follow along for the ride. And that's how things get done. So if you create a powerful enough Sankalpa, if you get quiet and you let it slip within the gap, in that space between words, that's when the magic happens. That's where the secret is, the true secret. Not in the wishing, not in the I would like this, but letting the intent, the energy of the intent, carry you through. Greater than willpower. I've actually done quite a bit of study and practice with that. Here's an easy way to do it. Meditate. And as you're meditating, as you are coming out of your meditation, enter the intent and then let it go. I have read also, you can read it right before you meditate and then right after, right when the silence is still present. Do both. Have it written down. Keep it secret. Sit and meditate. Look at it. That's your Sankalpa. That's your desire. That's what you want to manifest in your life. State it in the positive. An affirmation. And let it go. And then as you're coming out of meditation, you say it one more time. Don't have to force it. You don't have to do anything special with it. Just say it. You could do a little ritual if you want. You could put a ring of light around it or whatever. The important thing is you just release it in silence and let the universe handle the details. Don't worry about it again. You could repeat it in your next meditation. You could repeat it as often as you want in meditation. The important thing is, though, you're allowing the universe to carry out the details. I've used the example of a tomato seed. Could be any kind of seed. If you want a tomato plant, you plant the seed, you water it, you nourish it, you allow the sun to hit it. But you don't dig the seed up and keep checking it. Seeing if a tomato plant is growing and if that plant is bearing fruit. Tomato is a fruit. Because you disrupt the process. And it's the same with any intent. The intent of a tomato is within the seed. The seed is intent itself. It's been planted. It's been nourished. You let it go. The universe handles the detail. It's the same when you meditate and when you enter that Sankalpa. Put it in and release it. See what happens. So, all right, guys, that's my thoughts for the day. And I think we will keep it relatively short, coming up on 20 minutes, but actually trying to go longer. I've seen a YouTube subscriber guru talk about the live sessions and keeping them for like an hour or so. And I think that works when you have people join in. Yesterday I had a good group, and we were talking training, we were talking diet, all kinds of stuff. To me, it's just me, so I don't know if it's worth doing the whole hour's worth of talking. I'm sure that I could fill an hour with talking, especially with all the sidetracks that I've been doing. But if I keep it around 20, 21, 22 minutes, it might be more user-friendly, as user-friendly as my conversations actually are. But hey, you never know. Someone might get something out of it, and I hope if someone listens to the whole thing that they certainly do get something out of it and haven't wasted their time. I appreciate anyone who stops by, whether you join the conversation or not, or whether you watch it later. I appreciate it all. So with that being said, we're going to say goodbye for the day, and we'll be back tomorrow morning for some burpees. You guys have a good day. Take care.